So today I'm down in Tampa, Florida at Vanquish Tuning with Mr. Eric Cruz. We're going to be working on the Focus ST, getting a little more power out of the 93 octane tune, and maybe getting some corn juice involved. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. That was it? That was it? All right, so because we're setting up, real quick, what do you think your goals will be with this car today?
Actually, see, that's the thing is, I don't know what the goals are going to be because I've never tuned one of these before.
Am I your guinea pig?
Yes, you are the guinea pig.
Man.
The thing about the Fords is that if you're tuning a GTR and going for 1,000 horsepower on a GTR or tuning Freddie's Lambo, it's child's play compared to tuning one of these.
You're right, because this is an advanced machine. It's a performance machine, advanced high-tech performance machine.
Get 800, 900 horsepower from a Lambo, 700, 800, 1,000 horsepower from the GTR. That's fine. You want to impress me? Get 500 horsepower out of one of these. It's one of the most complex platforms to tune. Oh, and another thing is, last night I was cramming, like I was, studying for a test for high school. I had like a month to study, but I didn't study till like the night before. I was cramming like that last night to get as much information as I can to learn how to tune this car.
So what you're saying is I should have plans to Uber home because we're going to blow this mother up.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's go. All right, the car's all strapped up. She's hooked up to the dyno, and we are ready to rock and roll. I guess the only thing left to do is full pull. Right, Cletus? Did I do that right?
So basically, what we have here is your first run back in July. So the dash line is your very first run. The solid line is your second run. So you can see the difference, like between your first and second run. Your second run, it started pulling a bunch of timing because your IATs went through the roof.
228 degrees.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So that's why you see like it pulled a bunch of timing. So what we're gonna do right now is just do a run with the same tune, not changing anything, to see how much this cooler air, helps. As you can see, that's quite a bit of improvement over last time. Because last time, I believe you got like 160.
Yeah.
So, now let's look at all these crazy lines we got here. Last time the boost came in probably a bit sooner, and it resulted in quite a bit of torque early on, but it started pulling timing and tapered off shortly thereafter. However, this time, it got quite a bit more torque. Almost 250 foot-pounds, and it topped out at about 200 horsepower.
And that even seems a little low because supposedly this tune is supposed to give you close to like 330 pound-feet of torque, but it is a Mustang dyno. Yeah. It reads it a little lower, so that's fine.
Well, and that's another thing is that it's a Mustang dyno, and it's my Mustang dyno, which is the most stingiest. It's the most stingy dyno in the entire world. So I'm starting to question like how that if anything, it's probably a little bit off. I'm probably gonna have to recalibrate it. But she definitely doesn't show high numbers. She doesn't give it up. But still, 200 horses on this dyno is really good, especially considering the last time you were here, you got 165 horsepower last time. So a 35 horsepower jump between then and now, just from temperature difference. So that just goes to show how aggressive the knock strategy is on this car. I mean, it's super sensitive. This is one of the This is probably the only 4-cylinder that I know that comes with 2 knock sensors from the factory.
What's the next step? What are we doing now?
So right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna tune it. We're gonna write a base map for it. Whenever you tune, like I can't start with the tune as a starting point. Whenever a new tuner tunes the car, we're always starting from scratch. So we're gonna write a base map for it, and then see how much more power we can get out of it. We're gonna turn up the boost just a skosh.
Just a little giblet, little skosh.
Just a little bit, and yeah, just see what she does. This is my very first time tuning this platform, so I'm pretty excited to see what she's gonna do.
Baby steps. We'll get it.
So right now, stock, she's putting down 184 is what she's putting down. So what I'm going to do is take a look at a few of the parameters and that I just logged, and then from there we're going to make our first set of changes. All 4 cylinders, well, with the exception of cylinder 4, got up to about 2 degrees worth of advance, towards the very end. In the beginning, cylinder 4 did see some sort of, event. The computer reacts in real time, pulled some timing out, and as it was decaying that ignition correction out, by the time it hit the very end of the pull, it was only at 0.5 degree. But looking at the other 3 cylinders, everything was kosher, and it got up to 2 degrees worth of advance. Now, if we look at the table, in the high load area, at about the end of the pull, like in the 6,000 RPM range, what we have is about 2 degrees worth of advance. So, if you do a pull and you don't eventually get your full advance, what you have here, and let's just say you put in like 5 degrees worth of advance, and it ends up only giving you 1 degree at the end of the pull. That means that your ignition values are a little bit hot in your base table, so you need to go ahead and make some adjustments. Obviously everything's gonna be fine because this is a completely stock tune. So just this is my first time actually messing with the Ford's EcoBoost. So what I want to do is just play around and see what happens just by incrementally going up with the advance. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more degrees to the high load area and see how much the computer will actually take. If it ends up taking like all 4 degrees by the end of it, I'm just going to give it a little bit more. What you do is you just keep on giving it a little bit more until the computer says, okay, I've had enough, and then we'll leave it there, and then move on to the next parameter.
So now we're going to make a couple of runs and make a few changes in between. So let's see what we can do.
I added a little bit of ignition timing, and just 1 pound of boost, and we're gonna see what it does. The cool thing about this particular setup is that if there's any issues, the car will correct. It'll start to pull timing. So if we add 1 pound of boost and just a little bit of timing, if the car likes it, it's gonna keep it. It won't mess with it. If it doesn't like it, it'll let us know, and it'll pull the timing.
Okay, Papa, bless us with some knowledge.
Okay, so we added 1 pound of boost and just gave just a little bit of timing, and it resulted in quite a bit of an increase in torque. So torque went from 200 foot-pounds of torque to in the same place to 236.
Wow.
So just by adding just that 1 pound and just a little bit of timing, we got quite a bit more torque. Horsepower, we gained a little bit, not much. We went from like 180 to about 192. So we gained 12 horses.
And again, I know that a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, the car doesn't make a lot of horsepower. It's really slow." Keep in mind, this is a Mustang dyno, so it's in every sense of the word a heartbreaker.
Well, here's the thing. All we did was we're just getting started. We only added 1 pound of boost and just a little bit of timing. And again, pretty much what we're doing is we're just testing the waters because it's a new platform, at least for me, and Ford is probably one of the most difficult to tune as far as Cobb is concerned. It's funny because when I first started tuning for Cobb, Subaru, they're like, yeah, sure, not a problem. And later on, I started getting into Porsches, and I asked them for the Porsche suite. Not a problem, have fun. The day before we get the car here, I go ahead and ask for Ford, and they're like, "Oh, you got to get approved." They just did not
because it's a 4-door McLaren. He just keeps bringing it up. This is a high performance, speed machine. So.
Let
So we've made a couple more logging runs. What have we found?
Okay, so basically, the car is making some pretty good power. It's responding to the boost. But as we're raising up the boost and making our changes, we're going back and looking at how the car is reacting. And one thing that I noticed is that it is when we're cruising it at a constant about 2,500 RPM, the long-term fuel trims are about almost 16%, meaning that in order for the car to actually hit its fuel target, the computer's actually adding its own 15% on top of whatever is in the fuel table. So basically, it's just making sure that it's hitting target. Now, that could be a couple things. Typically, it's because if you put an air filter, a nice big conical air filter or something aftermarket or cold air intake, that will throw off, if you have maps and stuff like that, that'll throw that stuff off. So it could be something like that still needs to be touched up in the tune, or just something that I just want to make sure that it's not is also if your fuel pressure starts to drop. On DI cars, fuel pressure is pretty important. So when DI pumps start to go, some of the first signs is you'll see your short and long-term fuel trim start to get a little bit out of whack. So since we see that it's trimming about almost 16%, we're gonna do another log and actually monitor log the fuel pressure, what it's asking, its desired fuel pressure versus what the fuel pressure actually is. Then after that, if we can make sure that that the fuel pressure is all right, and it's something as simple as just the air the tune for the airbox, whatever, just needs to be tweaked a little bit more. Then we'll go ahead and continue forward, and put some E85, the pimp juice, and go from there. But we just want to take everything in steps because, well, the biggest thing is that this is the first time that we're actually tuning one of these Ford EcoBoost cars.
So here's to hoping that it's not a fuel pump and it's because of my ricer mods, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it is, it's all your fault. Kind of sucks that the color for both parameters are green, but this is the fuel pressure desired. This is what the computer's asking for in terms of fuel pressure, and then this is the fuel pressure actual in light green.
Oh wow, so it's pretty much spot on for most of that.
The only time that there's a diversion between the 2 points, like for example right here, is because I'm off throttle.
Ah, okay.
So at that point, it doesn't necessarily matter if it is off or something like that, because what happens, the car ends up cutting off the fuel injectors, and basically it's not consuming any fuel at that point. So that's why there's going to be a difference in them. But whenever I'm on throttle, if you look, everything lines up, and when I'm cruising, it lines up completely.
Nice. So okay, so we're spot on for fuel.
Yeah. So that means that so where that fuel trim is coming from isn't necessarily. It is not coming from a potential failure of the DI, the high pressure fuel pump. So that's good. So basically, we just need to tune a bit more for the intake, and we're good. But it's good. Especially when you're jumping into
a new platform.
Yeah. Especially when it's complex as this one, you want to go ahead and go step by step and just make sure that everything's fine before you take another step. So that's basically all we're doing.
Sweet. Okay, so after a few pulls, a few adjustments to the timing, we added 2 degrees, so she's up to a total of 4 degrees of timing, as well as fixing the fuel trim issues. I think we're gonna make some extra juice here, and this is before we go E85. So, Eric, are you ready to rock and roll with this thing, or what?
Oh yeah. time she came in to where she's at now. Wow.
The corrected calculation for that 204 is actually 255 horsepower to the wheels. We could see that in the graph. It is a huge improvement. Not only the amount of horsepower, but the way that it comes on. The torque curve is more linear increase. And this is pre-pimp juice. This is before we go E85. So I mentioned previously a little bit about the fuel trim. Give us a quick rundown of what we had to change to get this thing running right.
Okay, so the problem that we're having was initially the car would trim 15% on the long-term fuel trim, meaning that it was still hitting fuel targets, but the computer had to actually help out and add 15% to whatever was in the base fuel table in order for it to hit target. So that means that the tune was a little bit off. Couldn't figure out why at first, just to make sure we made sure that it wasn't the fuel pump or the fuel pump issue. So that wasn't it, and it turned out that it was, I guess whatever air box that you have was still throwing it off quite a bit.
My it's called a green filter.
I'm sorry, the green filter.
Do you know where they got the name? It's because the filter's green. The filter's green.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, fuel trim.
So anyway, we got it from 15 to about like 9. Was still messing with it a bit. We were able to take it from 9% and get it down to 0.78%, which is almost dead on.
It's godlike.
Yeah. So thank you. By adjusting the fuel scale just a bit, and everything fell into place. And after that, it went up from making like about 180 something, about 184, 185 horsepower to 212.
And that's indicated, yes. But with the correction again, that's 255 to the wheels. From the factory, these have 252 to the crank.
Yeah.
So that is huge. I can't wait to get this thing on the road to go to the gas station to get the pimp juice, because I can't wait to experience that. And then we're gonna go E85. We'll do the E30 tune. So I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you, and again, I really appreciate you letting me practice on your car.
Hey, thanks for touching my car.
Seeing that that I crammed the night before.
He says that he crammed the night before, but he's used to tuning like Porsches, McLarens, Lamborghinis, so I knew this was in good hands from the get-go. So let's get this thing off the dyno, let's head to the gas station and get some of the real good stuff. Okay, guys. First time, E85. Here she goes, 3 gallons. Why is it already going? Am I being scammed right now? 1 gallon. Two gallons. Yes! It's almost 4 a.m. I have 3 gallons of E85. It's strapped down to the dyno. We're gonna let her eat. We're gonna let her eat, right?
Yep.
All right.
Buffet.
Yeah, buffet. First things first, you gotta dial in the fuel, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Because now that we're running a mix of ethanol and pump gas, it's gonna throw off the fuel just a little bit, because it takes a certain percentage more ethanol than it does pump gas to make the same amount of energy. So the very first thing that we're going to do is get the fuel, make sure that it hits fuel targets with little to no trim, and then after that we get that straightened out, then we get to move on to the fun stuff, moving up the boost a little bit, and also getting a little bit more aggressive with the ignition timing.
So there may be an abrupt cut here. We were up until 5:30.
Dude, I stopped counting at about like 4 o'clock in the morning.
We were up till about 5:30. We tried finding a hotel. They were all full because of some sporting event. So we slept here last night. We got, what, hour and a half?
Dude, I got a full 20 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm feeling real good.
So we got about an hour and a half of sleep in an Outback. Oh, and Eric had, was that your first time having a Doppio espresso?
Yeah, Andrew introduced me to the world of coffee. Holy crap. I just told him, like, after we tune this car, I want to build a deck.
That's all you, dude. I'm going to bed after this, so. So, all right. All right, so where did we leave off, and what is our next step?
Okay, so where we left off. So, last night we went and got the Pimp Juice, the E85 mix. So the very first thing that we did was make sure that the car would hit fuel targets on that particular fuel mix.
She does.
And it took a little bit. We got her to hit targets, and she's hitting targets just fine. She gained like almost 35 pound-feet of torque just from adding the fuel and dialing the fuel in. It jumped up like actually pretty close to 40 pound-feet of torque. And then after that, my brain just kind of shut off, and
by the way, the 93 tune that we had running yesterday was making basically the same horsepower and torque figures that the stratified tune that I was running was also making. But that tune was using about 23 PSI. The numbers we were making last night with his tune was at 18 PSI.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what happens when we add boost and ignition timing to this E30 tune, because it's going to be pretty disgusting. So let's do this thing. All right. We did a few pulls. The tune is not finalized. This is kind of step one of getting the tune in line. I've got a few more parts I want to add before we really kind of dig into this. So this is a good start as far as an E30 tune goes. I'm really excited to get it out on the road. So tell me a little bit about what we got going on here.
All right, so we were able to make some gains, especially in torque and how the power comes in. It comes in a lot sooner. And we got it up to about 210 horse. So we made about like a 10 horsepower gain. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't look quite as much as far as like horsepower is concerned. But as far as torque, there is a bit of a noticeable difference. Now, the interesting thing about it, with the E30 tune, we're making a little bit more horsepower and more torque at a lower boost pressure than with the pump gas. So right here, what we have is the dash lines is how the car came in, and the solid lines is how the car is right now. Now, when the car came in, it was running at about 23 pounds of boost. Right now, it's running at about like 19 pounds of boost, 19 and a half, and that's what we're getting right, and this is where we're at right now. So we're making more power with less boost. The problem is that we're just trying to figure out how to actually turn up the boost, because anybody that's actually tuned these EcoBoost cars, whether it be the Mustang, the Focus ST or RS, they have a completely different boost strategy than anything else out there. So this is my first time actually tuning it, and I can't get it to go past 19 and a half pounds. So come Monday, when I get on the phone with Cobb, and now that I've actually played with it quite a bit, I have some really good questions to ask them. we'll be able to turn up the boost to about 23 pounds and see what we get.
So keep in mind that when he says 210 horsepower, that's indicated by this dyno. Typically what we do is we divide that number by 0.8 to get a more, would you say, realistic horsepower number?
More universal. That's what most dyno jets would do.
So when divided by 0.8, we're actually putting down about 265 horsepower to the wheels and just over 300 pound-feet of torque. So this is a definite upgrade. It's a step in the right direction, and I'm really excited to get the rest of this tune, the rest of these mods taken care of. It's not going to be a whole lot as far as mods go, but maybe I got bit by the horsepower bug a little bit. I don't know.
As a note for anybody out there that's a tuner and wondering why we're adding 20% on top of what this dyno reads compared to other dyno jets, typically a rule of thumb is that a Mustang dyno reads about like 15% lower than a dyno jet. The reason why we add 20% with this one is because this particular Mustang right here has read quite a bit lower than other Mustangs in the area. So there's another Mustang that I tune on, Vortex Motorsport, like down the street, and I've calibrated both dynos personally, and mine, for whatever reason, still, you know, reads a little bit lower. This is like one of the first Mustang 150s that was produced. So there's a few things about it that are a bit different than the current generation that makes it read a bit lower. So that's why we tend to, you know, give like 20% as opposed to, you know, the typical 15. And it's just stingy. It really, really is.
All right, guys, my time here at Vanquish Tuning is at an end. I'm gonna head home and try not to get a speeding ticket. I'm gonna try really hard not to get a speeding ticket on the way home. We'll see what the future holds for this car. I can't wait to get some more parts, get the tune refined a little bit, and then we'll see what number she puts down. So until then, thanks for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. It's Wrench Every Day. Peace.